It's time for today's travel and cruise industry news. With the latest from travel and cruises around the world, here's your host, Chillie Falls.
Good morning. Welcome to Travel and Cruise Industry News on this, the 23rd day of September 2022. This show is pre-recorded, as when you watch this at 11 o'clock, I will be with my pulmonologist. So, big morning for me today. Not a whole lot in the news, but we still have some weather to look at. Of course, Canada braces for Fiona. Carnival Splendor crosses the international dateline. We got a few more details from Canada. Hot Air Tom gets ready to board the Prima. Sue got a tattoo. Rochelle is in Paris, the Chapel of Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal, St. Catherine LABOURE. I have a thing they're getting ready to board the flight to come back home. This might be the end of their trip. I'm not sure about that one. And Cindy and the girls, of course, they're on the Norwegian Epic. They were in Florence with a little wine tasting in Tuscany. Why does that not surprise me with that crowd? That and more here at 11. Today is National American Pot Pie Day. I don't mind pot pie. It's not my favorite. Of course, it's a little cool this morning. It wouldn't be a bad day for a pot pie. But so take care of that, folks. Do yourself a pot pie for lunch or dinner today. If you're listening via the podcast, welcome aboard. You can always access the podcast via my blog, which is accessadventure.net, or wherever you get your podcast from. All the big hitters like TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podchaser, Pandora, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, any of them. Just search for Travel and Cruise Industry News, and up pops the fat travel guy. If you ever want to hop over to our pictures or clips that we're showing, feel free to do so. There's always a link in the description of the podcast so you can access the video feed. All right. Hot Air Tom. This is a shot from his hotel. No, that's not it. What happened to Hot Air Tom's picture? Oh, there it is. Had it in the wrong place. Hot Air Tom took this shot early this morning from his hotel of the Prima in place in Southampton. And then back to this one that I flicked up. That, of course, is Cindy's ship. She was in Florence and up on board the ship early. The pool deck on the Epic. The water sports things. I wonder if she actually went down the water slide. I'll have to ask her about that one. And then the girls took a little side trip up to the Tuscany region for a little wine tasting, went to a vineyard, and this is a little showroom display of the vineyard. They had a little snacks with the wine tasting. They did get to go out and tour to actually see the vineyards themselves. You know, a lot of the places where you go for wine tasting, they don't want to let you get anywhere near the vineyards for obvious reasons. They're very protective. They don't want any possibility of damage done to them in any way, shape, or form. So anyway, that's Cindy and the girls that went out and did a little wine tasting. All right, to make this, to give you the backstory on Sue's tattoo, as you can see, it's a little wiener dog. Well, Sue and Barry, I don't know, they have 6 or 8. And I'm not sure if they're actually miniature dachshunds or dachshunds full size, because it's hard to tell from. I think they're maybe miniature dachshunds. But anyway, so Sue got a tattoo of a wiener dog, and that's it filled in. So the first person that I've actually talked to or have information that has used the tattoo parlor on a Virgin Voyages ship. And Rochelle is in Paris, like I said. Oops, that's the dog again. I didn't want to do that. Oh, that's Sue and Barry, by the way. That was in Cagliari. That was just a good picture. All right, Rochelle, again, like I said, in Paris. And just the amazingness of the cathedrals and churches all over Europe. So we'll see if we have anything more from Rochelle tomorrow, or that'll be Monday, my next show, unless something happens over the weekend. But that's it for that portion of the show. I'll be back with a little bit of news right after a word from one of our network sponsors. All right, we still got to talk about weather, of course. Fiona has slipped past Bermuda, is now heading toward a direct hit in Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. Hurricane conditions expected in Nova Scotia by early tomorrow. There's still warnings in effect for Bermuda as it's gone past Nova Scotia, from Hubbard's to Brule, Prince Edward Island, Isle de la Madeleine, in Newfoundland, from Parsons Pond to Francois, all have hurricane warnings. Tropical storm warnings is in effect for St. Andrews, New Brunswick, to West Hubbard's, Nova Scotia, west of Brule, Nova Scotia, to Cap Madeline, Quebec, Anacostia Island, Sheldrake, Quebec, to north of Parsons Pond, Newfoundland, Boat Harbor to Hari Bay, Newfoundland, and Francois to St. Lawrence, Newfoundland. The center of Hurricane Fiona was located about 155 miles northwest of Bermuda, about 765 miles southwest of Halifax, Nova Scotia. Fiona is moving toward the north-northeast at 25 miles an hour. A north-northeast or north-eastward motion with an additional increase in forward speed is expected today. Some reduction in forward speed as it turns toward the north is forecast for tonight through tomorrow. On the forecast track, the center of Fiona passed to the northwest of Bermuda early this morning. Fiona's center will then approach Nova Scotia later today, move across Nova Scotia and the Gulf of St. Lawrence tomorrow, and then across Labrador over the Labrador Sea on Sunday. Maximum sustained winds are 125 miles an hour, so it's been dropped back to a Category 3 storm. There could be some slight weakening as it approaches Canada. However, Fiona is so big that and powerful that it doesn't matter what it's going to hit Canada at. It's going to hit with a punch. So the hurricane force winds extend outward 115 miles from the center. That's hurricane force. Tropical force winds is like 380 miles. So the estimated central pressure is still down at 936, which means that it could still wreak a lot of havoc. Now, the thing that disturbs me the most about this is not necessarily, by the way, this is the path no, that's not the path that she's going to take. I don't have that cone up. So Fiona is just going to head straight, pretty much due north now, hit Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, in that area. What scares me the most is that the ships that are in that vicinity haven't had the chance to escape like happens in the Caribbean. So ships that could be affected by this storm that are currently in ports along the East Coast or having just gotten off those ports. Now, keep in mind, this storm missed Bermuda on the west side. That's on the U.S. coast side. So this morning, ships that could be affected by some portions of this, at least rain and winds, maybe not actually hurricane force winds, but definitely tropical force winds, include Enchantment of the Sea, Carnival Magic, the Roald Amundsen, that's a Hurtigruten ship, the American Cruise Line's Independence, Adventure of the Seas, Voyager of the Seas. And then up in the St. Lawrence Seaway, you got Oceania Insignia, you've got Star Pride from Windsor, you've got Seabourn Quest, and of course you've got Holland America's New Statendam. Now those could be in Montreal or Quebec that are supposed to come in or out of the St. Lawrence Seaway, but they're basically now those are in the river. I mean, in the St. Lawrence Seaway. They're not going to get out of this for possibly a couple days. I'm concerned that all these ships have not had the time to get to safe places for the passengers. They could be in for some rough sailing, I think. The only one ship that had changed its itinerary officially was changing from going to Bermuda. We know that would be out for today. And they're going to Canada. Well, this thing's going to head right up their tailpipe. I don't know. I'm a little worried about the outcome of this. I think some people are going to be in for some rough sailing for the next couple days. Just my thought, folks. Now, back to this map. Okay. Gaston is out near the Azores. Heavy rainfall is expected over west and central Azores today and tomorrow. Maximum sustained winds 60 miles an hour. It's moving east-southeast at 15. Minimum central pressure is 999. At 9 o'clock this morning, the center of Tropical Storm Gaston was located about 140 miles north-northwest of Fail Island in the central Azores. Gaston is moving toward the east-southeast near 9 miles an hour. A slower southeastern motion is expected today, followed by a southward and then a southwestward motion tonight and early tomorrow. In other words, this thing is going to take a 90-degree turn actually a 180-degree turn from it with the direction it was going, and is going to head back to the west. So there's no indication yet of it strengthening, and it supposedly is going to, over the next couple of days, gradually weaken and hopefully go away. Let's hope for. Now, not so lucky are we with 9 down here. This is the path of 9, which will become Hermine when it becomes a named storm, which could be later today or tomorrow, assuming this is the next named storm. It's possible that the storm right off the coast of Africa could overtake it, but it's most likely that Hermine will be this storm. So, Tropical Depression 9 is expected to produce heavy rainfall and instances of flash flooding, possible mudslides in the areas of higher terrain in Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. Heavy rains are also likely to spread into Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. The depression is expected to approach Jamaica and the Cayman Islands as an intensifying tropical storm. Watches and warnings for these locations may be required. The system is forecast to approach western Cuba now and enter into the southeastern Gulf of Mexico, interest in Cuba, and along the eastern coast of the United States. Should definitely closely monitor this storm through the weekend. And now it looks like it has Florida in its sights. So what will probably be Hermine is going to head directly for Florida. See if there's any more information on that. It's located about 615 miles east-southeast of Kingston, Jamaica, which makes it about 1,100 miles east-southeast of Havana. It's moving toward the west-northwest about 13 miles an hour. It's going to head directly west, then turn back to the west-northwest, and then the northwest by the weekend. Maximum sustained winds are 35 currently. Slow intensification is forecast over the next day or two, followed by more significant intensification over the weekend into early next week. Currently, the pressure is in the safety zone. It's at 1,006 millibars. However, with the intensification, this puppy is most likely not only to become a tropical storm, but a hurricane. And at this point, we have no idea how strong it's going to be. It's going over just extraordinarily warm water. So that's going to be adding a lot of fuel. Now back to the main map. The 2 systems off of Africa, the yellow X is not expected to do a whole lot. You're talking about a 20 to 30% formation over the next 5 days. You know, it's going to head several hundred miles still to the Cabo Verde, from the Cabo Verde Islands, and several hundred miles to get to the islands in the Caribbean. It's just, I don't see this one doing anything. Not so much the one coming off the shore, that's the red X. They're talking a 70% chance of further development in 2 days and another 70% over 5 days. This is going to be the next storm. Maybe, hopefully, it would be nice if it's the last storm of the season, as we are definitely getting to the end of the season now. But it's been a lot of action. So we got to keep our eyes on that. We definitely got to keep our eyes on 9. And of course, Fiona's going to wreak havoc with Well, it's still going to wreak havoc with Bermuda because it's close and it's such a big storm. But all up and down the um, east coast of the U.S., and then it's hard hit into Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. So Gaston's going to cause some grief with Azores, but I don't see it doing much else. All right. That takes us to the Pacific coast. You got Newton, and you got a new storm now that's developed. The new storm I don't see doing much, and Newton is turned to the west and is pretty much expected just to hook a little around to the west and northwest, and then hook to the southwest, and it's going to dissipate. It's just, a couple more days, it'll be gone. So much for the weather for today. Couple quick news stories. Carnival Splendor, and this one that wasn't Carnival Splendor. Not sure what happened with the picture. There, got the picture missing. Okay. Carnival Splendor recently concluded her season in Alaska, where she spent the summer sailing in colder climates from Seattle, showing guests everything the state has to offer. Now she's on her way to warmer temperatures as she sails to Australia. Yesterday marked a special occasion for guests and crew on board the Concordia-class ship. As she crossed the international Dateline, the vessel was sailing westward in the Southern Ocean after visiting Hawaii. Crossing the international Dateline, recognized calendar boundary, means the Carnival Splendor skipped a day of the week. I don't quite understand all this, and I haven't figured it out yet. But basically, it was Wednesday when it happened. It crosses the Dateline, and it becomes Friday. Why didn't it become just, I'm not sure why I understand all that. It completely skips a day. So anyway, that's what they say. So I'll let it go at that. The other thing this morning is just an update on our story from Canada. The Canadian government has decided to drop the vaccination requirement for people entering Canada, end random COVID testing at airports, and make the use of the ArriveCAN app optional. By the end of the month, a senior government source told CBC, that's the Canadian Broadcasting Company. Earlier this week, the CDC was told that Ottawa was leaning toward ending the measures, but that a final decision hadn't been made, was waiting the approval of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. The current COVID-19 emergency order related to border measures was set to expire September 30th. The government had the option of extending the measures or not. Well, apparently it's not. And the government is expected to make an announcement on Monday, the source says. So now we've got a second source from the government talking to the CBC that confirms the fact that they are going to do away with at least that much of the protocols. The official spoke to the CBC on condition of anonymity, as they were not authorized to speak publicly. So it'll become final and formal on Monday when the government releases it, but that's what they're going to release. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up today's show. As I've said all week, that this show was going to be pre-recorded as I'm at the doctor's today. Thank you for being with me. I will see everybody back here again on Monday for the Travel and Cruise Industry News Podcast. or if anything major happens over the weekend. I hope to have a weekend of getting a lot more content posted from the last few cruises, both on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. So you might want to keep checking those sources because I got a whole bunch of stuff to do. So hopefully we'll see you guys sometime over the weekend. If not, we'll see everybody back here on Monday for Monday's Travel and Cruise Industry News podcast. That's it for now. This is the old fat travel guy. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, thinking about cruising, and we'll see everybody one day soon on the high seas. Later, y'all.
I regularly post videos on all facets of the travel and cruise industry. So if you like to keep up with the latest in cruise ships, ports of call, cruises themselves, Chillie chats, and travel and cruise industry news, just hit the little subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner, hit the bell notification so you'll be notified when a new video is up or we go live. This video was produced by Chillie's Cruises.